Hello, welcome back to my Pathfinder beginner's tutorial. Today we're going to be going over two chapters in the core rulebook. We're going to be going over magic and selecting the spells for this character, which basically covers two chapters for magic. So we're going to go through it and go through the basics of magic. So basically the first thing is how to cast a spell. Basically just you need multiple components. Okay, so let's go for choosing spells. For wizards, all your spells are in your spell book, and when you prepare, and you have to prepare what's called prepare your spells. So basically, for each spell per day, you can prepare one spell in it. So ultimately, once you cast a spell that you prepare, you lose it. So it's kind of like playing a card from a hand. So you pick, like for this character, he picks ultimately 3 spells. One of them has to be an evocation, and then he can play them once per day. And then once he gets it, he can pick new spells from his spell book. Ultimately, like picking new cards for your hand, if that makes sense. For classes like sorcerer, for sorcerers and bards, they just know spells. So they know this many spells and they can cast it equal to this the number they have here, but they won't have the +1 specifically for a specific school or a specific type or specific domain. So that's the main difference between them. So sorcerers are easier spellcasters to know than wizards because you don't have to prepare each spell individually. Second of all is concentration. So basically, if you're get hit or something happens while you're casting, you're gonna have to pay attention. So the roll is 1d20 plus your caster level, which is your total levels in all abilities let you cast spells. So this character is effectively a first level caster, even though he's a second level character because he only has 1 caster level in his the wizard type. Plus his whatever spell that is running your whatever ability is running your stat. So in this case, he adds his intelligence of 4. So basically, the total is +5 to the roll. The DCs are listed here, so I'm just going to go through some of the basics. If you want to cast in a way that does not provoke an attack of opportunity in the middle of combat, the DC is 15 plus double the spell level. The spell level is right here. You're not using levels. Each spell has 9 levels. So basically, to cast a first level spell in combat, the DC is 17. This is very hard to cast and defensively while in low levels. You're injured while you're casting. This is if someone hits you. DC is 10 plus the damage you take plus the spell level. And there's a whole list of things like wind and hail is 10 plus the spell level. So theoretically, there's a lot. It's basically anything that can throw off your concentration while casting a spell. You have to make one of those checks. Next one is counterspelling, aka stopping another a mage from casting a spell. There's multiple ways to do this. Basically, first things first, you have to ready a counterspell, which means you're basically holding your turn until they cast. And then to do it, you have to identify the spell with a spellcraft check. As a free action, if the check succeeds, you correctly identify the spell and can attempt to counter it. To complete the action, you must cast the appropriate spell. As general rules, a spell can only counter itself. So theoretically, if I'm gonna counter a mage, let's say if you're a sorcerer, sorcerers can be pretty good at counterspelling because they can prepare they get so many spells, they can outspell a wizard. So if they use the same spells, they can counter it. There are specific spells that can counter anything like Dispel Magic, but that's a general check. So let's say if someone's throwing a fireball at you, you can cast your own fireball to effectively nullify it, which is a very good hand knock down a mage that's gonna hurt everybody in your party. And it also has rules. If a spell is modified by mathematic feat, they are not taken into account. So a maximized fireball can still be countered by a normal fireball. I'm using fireball as an explanation. And oh yeah, dispel magic is in here too. Some spells specifically oppose other spells, like daylight will counter darkness and some other spells. So it will notice in the description that it is dispelled and dispelled by. And you can use dispel magic as a counterspell being cast without needing to identify the spell. Dispel magic does not always work as a counterspell. You can see the spell description. That's in the next chapter. This is just the rules. Caster level. The spell's power is dependent on caster level. The more spell casting characters is equal to his class level and the class he is using to cast a spell. For example, this character only has 1 level wizard, which he's using to cast a spell, so it's only a caster level 1. These spells will determine level dependent features of the spell based on the same class level. So basically this will affect your range, duration, and damage dealt mainly. But also the check to overcome spell resistance. And the caster level check used to dispel magic. So theoretically, dispel magic is roll against the caster level. So the higher it is, the harder it is to dispel it. The higher your caster level is, the more levels of spells you get. Basically, I worked it out. Every 2 caster levels as a prepared caster, you get an extra spell level. And for about every 3, you get 1 for spontaneous. So the weakness of spontaneous is they don't go down this list longer, but they get more of these. Spell failure. Basically, if you try to cast a spell where the condition or the characteristics of the spell cannot be made to conform, the casting fails and the spell is wasted. It also fails if your concentration is broken, and you might fail when you're wearing armor and while casting spells with a systematic component. That's why I did not take armor in the character sheet. That's why I did not take armor in the thing, because they have this thing called spell failure. Spell failure will only apply to arcane spellcasting, which is a problem. If you're a cleric, druid, ranger, or paladin, it does not count. It only functions with divine arcane spells. Thus, you can still wear armor if you're playing those classes. It's a utility you're going to have to work around if you want to. Special spell effects. Those can be going through specifically. Combining magic effects, stacking effects. Spells that provide bonuses or penalties on attack rolls, damage rolls, saving throws, and other abilities usually do not stack with themselves. More differently, 2 bonuses of the same type do not stack, even if they come from different spells. The exception is if the bonuses and penalties from 2 different spells stack if the modifiers are different types. The bonuses doesn't have the same type stacks with any bonuses. A bonus that does not have a type. So basically, some spells, let's say there's a list of 2nd level spells that buff your stats. These are called enhancement bonuses if they do it. So if you want to buff your ability scores further, you have to find something that's not an enhancement bonus, which is very rare. I think even magic items that buff your stats are enhancement bonuses. And they often strip that spells down pretty easily. Okay, so let's go through the spell mechanic stuff. First things first, this is basically how the next chapter is going to work. First, there's the spell name, which is basically what it's called. I just say 7 spells because I haven't picked the names of the spells to put in my spellbook yet. Then there's the school and subschool. The school and subschool determine basically When I said you can take what's called spell focus, you take it in a school and increase the difficulty check, the DC, the spell save DC of any spell from that school. So it applies to the main school. Subschools can also have things going through it, so I'm just going to go through the basics. Abjuration, this is your protective spells. Basically, they're the ones that create physical, magical barriers and negate magic. Dispel magic is in this list. Sorry. Okay, and there's some rules about keeping them close together for long periods of time. Let's go next to Conjuration. Conjuration spell belongs to 5 subschools. Conjurations teleport creatures from another plane existence to your plane. Create objects from nothing. Okay, so it's better to go through the subschools. Culling. This transports a creature from another plane to where you are. The spell grants a creature a one-time ability to return to its plane of origin, but the spell may limit the circumstances of which is possible. Creatures who are called actually die when they are killed. They do not disappear and reform, as those brought by the summoning spells. The duration is instantaneous, which means a called creature cannot be dispelled. Which means the spell goes off, the creature shows up, and then you can't bring him back with the same magic. Creation. The creation spell manipulates manners to create an object of the spellcaster designates. The spell has duration other. If the spell has a duration other than instantaneous, the magic holds the creation together. When the spell ends, the conjured creature or object vanishes without a trace. If it isn't instantaneous, the created object or creature is merely assembled through magic. It lasts indefinitely and does not depend on magic for its existence. Healing. Conjuration. Certain divine conjuration can heal creatures and bring them back to life. This is the kind of thing that's mostly divine. Summoning spells instantaneously bring a creature or object to the plane you designate. When the spell ends or dispelled, the summoned creature is instantaneously sent back. And this is the one that allows the creature to reform in 24 hours. Teleportation, that's kind of self-explanatory. Divination is basically the stuff that you use to find information. You can also use it to scrying, which is basically like the whole seeing through crystal ball. Enchantment, this is the influencing someone else's behavior through mind affecting spells. They say all enchantment are mind affecting. There's 2 subschools. Charm changes the way the subject views you, typically making you a good friend. Compulsion forces the subject to act in a matter or change the way its mind works. So a big problem with enchantment is the fact is that it will not affect any creature that does not have a mind, such as pretty much all undead and constructs. Evocation, that's the one we chose. It manipulates magical energy or traps an unseen force of power to produce a desired end. Basically, it's to create something from nothing. Illusion, this is your holograms, your figments, your glamours, patterns. Basically, it's creating something that's not there. There is a subschool called Shadow, which creates something that is partially real. So it's a thing you should be watching out for. It's definitely illusion. It's a school that favors the creative. Necromancy, this is the spells that manipulate death, unlife, and life force. And spells that will mainly target undead creatures. So if you want to create your own spell which is possible in this game, and it has a distinction that only affects undead, it will be a necromancy spell, which is one of my prohibited schools. Well, restricted schools. I might as well, once I finish this, I'll go over what restricted schools the problem is with those for a second. Transmutation. Transmutation changes the property of one thing to another, so it's polymorphine and primarily polymorphine. Okay, so now we got over all the schools. I'll go over what the restricted schools are. So evocation, I get a bonus. So picking evocation as my prohibited school, as my arcane school, basically gives me one spell in there and gives me a bonus on my spellcraft checks to learn it, to learn spells of that school. But the restricted schools give me a penalty to learn those spells. I can still learn them and still cast them, but it's a penalty on learning spells from that school. And if I also prepare it, I have to spend 2 of my spell slots to prepare a spell from those schools. So instead of preparing 3 spells from any other school, I can only prepare 1 spell and an evocation that day, which is something you're going to have to pay attention to. That's why picking your restricted schools is something that's very handy, because you're most likely not going to use those schools. Okay, so we're going to go through. So we're going to go over the descriptor. Basically, this is kind of like a thing. You'll find a lot of these in Invocation. Basically, it's descriptors like acid, air, the alignments, cold, darkness. So basically, this is how a spell would work. Like, if you're gonna, for example, if you're summoning, basically whatever creature type you're summoning will be part of the subtype. So if you're summoning a lawful good creature, the spell is both a lawful and a good spell, which will have penalties if you're playing a divine caster, because they cannot cast any alignment spells that are opposite of their own. So in this case, this guy cannot cast any lawful or any evil spell if he was divine caster, but he's not, so he can cast those. However, most of the evil spells in Wizard are from necromancy, specifically the spells that animate the dead. The spell's level. The spell level is a number between 9 and 9 and relates to its power. So basically, it's a spell's level determines what the min level. You can prepare spells at higher levels, but it has no effect. But this is the min level you can put it at. So you cannot use a first level spell slot to prepare a 9th level spell. And you have to know the spell level to learn it. So this guy can only learn first level and only learn second when he gets to third caster level. Components, this is basically what it takes to evoke the spell in-game. Your character's evoking, just to make it clear, it's the character in the story that's evoking the spell, not you. That's a very big difference. So they need verbal, which means they'll need to speak. Systematic, which means they have to move their hand. The arcane spell failure only apply for armor if the spell requires systematic, which pretty much all of them do. You gotta be able to move your hands properly. Material, this is basically any physical object you need to cast a spell. This is why I took a spell component pouch. Basically, in base rules, you can assume that most of the stuff you need is in there. Unless it costs money or is very bulky, like a wall mirror. And though, yes, those are needed. Pacific wall mirror. I think one of the only spells are like spells that scry, so like most divination spells might require some really large, crunky things. Most spells that create undead are gonna need gemstones that cost money. Okay, so next is your focus. Focus is a problem, of course. The material component is used each time you cast a spell. A focus is not. And next is a divine focus. This is only for divine spells. Basically, it normally applies. The divine focus for clerics and paladins is your holy symbol. So basically, it's kind of like using a cross for a spell. So basically, that's basically the idea. You carry your cross and use it to channel divine energy. Some components are listed as having both a focus and a divine focus, or material divine focus. If you're arcane, use the one that's not a divine focus. So, and normally it'll say arcane and divine right there. So, casting time. Many spells will have a casting time of one standard action. This is basically the same as taking one shot. So basically, this one shot is a standard action. So basically, instead of shooting, you can cast a spell. Some spells require one round, which is a full round of combat. Basically, from your turn to basically the start of your turn to the start of your next turn to cast this full spell. And in that case, you can be your concentration can be affected. Some spells will take 1 minute to cast. A minute is 10 rounds to cast. These actions must be consecutive and uninterrupted, or the spell will fail if you're casting a minute-long spell. Most minute-long spells are not that powerful, but you're not going to see them in combat. I think they're mostly just utilitarian spells that have that. Casting a spell of one, there's actually also a swift action spell. Doesn't count against your normal limit of one spell per round. However, you can only cast one of those spells a round. A swift action spell is mostly going to be found when if you take the Metamatic Feat Quicken spell, which changes the standard action casting into a swift action. And I think they're only available for prepared spellcasters, because Spontaneous has to upgrade their spell level to 1 higher, so they take a full round action to cast any Metamatic spell. And you make all determinations about the spell when it comes into effect. So you can actually just say you're casting a spell if a full round action, and then if the combat changes, you can actually choose to summon something different or choose a different target. Range. Spells have different ranges. One is personal, which affects only you. There's you have to touch a target to affect them. You can affect them close, which is about 25 feet, and increasing by 5 feet per every 2 caster levels. So the spells will increase, but it's generally very close to you. Medium range is 100 feet and 10 feet per level, caster level. The long range is 400 feet plus 40 feet per caster level. That's probably as long as you're going to find normally, but there's 2 more. One is unlimited. The spell can reach anywhere on the same plane of existence. And then there's some spells that are expressed specifically in feet. Some spells do not have a range category. The range is expressed in feet. So this is basically like a set 5 feet in front of you kind of spell. Aiming spell, targets and targets. Oh yeah, there is a spell attack. So basically we're talking about spreads now. So there's cones, radiuses, and lines are the main ones you're going to see. A cone basically goes up for you like a cone. Basically, there's 2 types. On the grid, you go from 1 point of origin. You can aim a spell from any square you're in. So basically, if you're aiming in a square that's adjacent to you, it goes up by X. So basically, how it works is you go up. So basically, in the feet, 5 feet. So let's see. I'm just going to use this for example. Let's say you're right here and I aim a spell right here. And it's a cone. So it goes 1, and it's a 15-foot cone. So 5, 10, 15. 5, 10, 15. That's my cone. So let's try another spell. And this is, and if you're aiming forward, 5, and 15, and there's your 15-foot cone going adjacent to you. A radius just goes around. A radius, you pick a space, and let's just do a 5-foot radius. and it just goes around that space. And a line is basically just makes what it is. You can stretch the line out as you like, but it basically mainly goes straight, but you can move it around. So, makes sense. Line of effect, so basically you have to see the thing. Oh yeah, if the target rolls a natural 1, their equipment can be targeted, but that's kind of more an optional roll anyway, so. Now we're going to go through saving throws. So basically this type of saving throws, it will say a specific saving throw. A spell will sometimes have saves. Excuse me. So basically first it will lit what saving throw it has. Fortitude, reflex, or will. Excuse me. Sorry about this. The first type is negate. So if the saving throw is successful, there is no effect. The spell is wasted. Partial. The spell has an effect on the subject. The successful save means that some lesser effect occurs. Half. This is most common with evocation. The spell deals damage. A successful saving throw halves any damage taken, rounded down. So, specifically Fireball, like a lot of those blast-based radius spells for evocation, has a reflex half. Will saves are normally negates, specifically with enchantment, and fortitude can be lesser. But sometimes they can be negate or have to. So it just depends on what the spell says. No saving spell. Some spells have no saves allowed. These are mostly buffs or spells that have attack rolls. Like if you're going to cast Scorching Ray, a second level evocation, there's no saving throw because the fact is you have to touch them first with the spell attack. Disbelief is specifically for the illusion spell. A successful save lets the subject ignore the spell effect. Object. The spell can be cast at objects which receive a saving throw. Only if they're magical or if they are tended by the creature resisting the spell, in which case the object uses the creature saving throw bonus. A magic item saving throw is equal to plus half the item's caster level. So even items have caster levels, but they're determined by what level it is. Harmless. The spell is mostly beneficial, not harmful, but the target can attempt a saving throw if it desires. Most healing spells are... Actually, the funniest thing is, all healing spells in Pathfinder are will half. Because the fact is they will harm the undead. So if you're going to target somebody and they make a save, it's pretty common that they'll be undead in disguise. Let's see. Saving throw and difficulty class. The saving throw is equal to 10 plus the spell level plus the relevant ability score. So basically I've already plugged that in. So 10 plus 0 plus 4 is my difficulty, plus 1 for the thing. So that's my difficulties. So basically if you're rolling a spell save against my spell, the target number you have to hit is this. So 15 for a first level spell. So basically it's a 9 or higher on reflex, or a 13 or higher on will or reflex, or fortitude. So next, succeed on saves. If you roll a natural 20 or a natural 20 or natural 1, you'll automatically succeed or fail at the relevant saving throw. And you can also, if you don't want to mess things up, you can always just forego any saving throw you need. Like, you don't need to take a saving throw. Like, the rules specifically state that if a save comes up, you can actually, specifically from a spell, you can say, I do not want to take the save. Let's say Cure Light Wounds. You can actually just say, okay, I know that spell, I'm not going to take the saving throw. And spell resistance. So basically in the spell resistance, you have to make a caster level check, which is d20 plus your caster level, equal to the spell resistance to have the spell affect them. Some spells do not have the ability to ignore that ability. Specifically, a lot of conjuration spells will ignore spell resistance because the fact is it's not physical energy attacking them. It's something that's been called out of nothingness. So it's a physical object. It was just created by magic, so it's still going to affect them. Arcane spell. So basically, there's a bunch of rules. There's actually some rules about adding spells to your spell book. So let's go over. So cost, I think so to record a spell in your spell book, it takes 1 hour per level. So it takes and there's a rule about cantrips for this take half the time, so it's 30 minutes to record. So it takes 30 minutes to 9 hours to write a spell in your spell book. This is if you find a scroll of that spell. There's also research that can take weeks to finish and cost a lot more. The spell cost is... So basically it takes... every spell takes 1 page per level. And a 0th level spell takes 1 page. And your normal spell book will have 100 pages to fill up. So you might have to buy a new spell book if you keep on collecting spells. Which is kind of the point of a wizard anyways. You want to increase your options. Materials and cost. So basically, these are the costs to write a spell book. Every level you take as wizard, you get some new spells for free. As part of your ongoing research. You do not need to pay for them. So basically, it ranges 5 GP for a cantrip, 10 gold for a first level spell, 40 for a second, 90 for a third level spell, going up to 810 gold for a 9th level spell recording. And that does not include the price of the scroll, which can go over 1,000. And you can also replace or copy a spell book. So basically, if you have a spell prepared, you can write down if you lose your spell book. The process will count as if you've expelled the spell. If you're duplicating an existing spell book, it's the same procedure, but the time requirements and costs are half. So basically, it's half the time from that. And you can sell the spellbook if you find an enemy spellbook or a villain spellbook. You can sold for an amount equal to half the cost of purchasing and inscribing spells within. So it's not going to be like you're going to make your own spellbooks and sell them for profit, because you're basically selling them for way less than it costs you. If you're going to make money by with magic, you'd probably be better selling magical items, but even then you're selling them at half price. The main job of most of these characters is to make sure that they go out for adventure. That's why most of the rules are a lot less. That's why most of the stuff you cannot make yourself. Like if you take... So basically I'll go over the making Scribe Scroll later, but this is a magic item creation feat. This basically allows you to make your own spell scroll. So if you want to... So basically, you can write spells you have out. So I wonder, basically, since you only have so few spells, you can just take your spells and write the scrolls of them to basically use your money to get more spells per day, which is kind of a very big thing for a wizard. They have to get the spells ready. Let's see, divine spells. And there's also rules. Basically, when you refresh spells, you have to rest for 8 hours, and any spell you cast within that last 8 hours, if you do cast one, will be counted against you. So let's go through picking your spells. Basically, I'm in the 10th chapter right now if you're going along. So basically, the 10th chapter is basically the spell rules and how to go through it. So let's just go to Wizard and find our thing, which is one thing I really like about Wizards and Sorcerers. It focuses it by spell school. So I know all 0th level spells except Necromancy Enchantment. So basically, the only spells I do not know is Bleed, Disrupt Undead, and Touch of Fatigue. Disrupt Undead is a spell that does damage to undead specifically. And Daze, which causes a single humanoid with 4 hit die or levels. You get 1 hit HD per level, hit die per level. Loses its next action. So that's basically the stuff I do not have. So let's go into picking my first level spell. So I have 7 to pick from. Let's see. Well, I want Magic Missile. Oops. That's an evocation that does damage in a long range, requires SR, but doesn't require an attack roll. So basically, it's kind of like a auto hit spell, which is very handy. Let's see. Should I take something? I'll take True Strike. That's a divination. Costs a standard action to cast. And the next attack grants you a bonus of plus 20. So basically, it's a spell basically used to guarantee a hit. Ultimately guarantee a hit. Let's see. What's another one I should take? I'm not going to take Summon Monster right now because it will only last 1 round. So spending 1 round to get 1 round back is not very handy for me. Let's see what my skills are. Yeah, I have ranks in acrobatics. You know what? Let's take Jump. Jump is a spell that grants a bonus to acrobatics. It's a transmutation, which is going to be nice to enhance my normal abilities. That's kind of what I'm picking spells for here, to enhance the abilities of the character. Evocation is just because of the thing. I'm mostly just gonna cherry pick evocation spells here. Floating Disc. Basically, that's an evocation that creates basically a portable wagon that can hold 100 pounds per caster level, which means 100 pounds for me, which is quite a bit. Endure Elements. That basically allows you to keep warm and cool in warm environments and keep warm and cold environments. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I just need 2 more spells. 2 more spells for my spell book. Let's see. You know what? Let's take Ventriloquism, which is basically a spell, an illusion spell that allows you to throw your voice. I'm just gonna... I might have typed that in wrong, but I might have spelled that wrong, but... 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I only can know 1 more spell. And I'm also going to prepare spells for this character too, so let's see. My next spell is going to be Burning Hands, which is basically a cone of fire. So let's take my spell prepared. I'll just put them in equipment actually. So let's go through my 0th spell. I can prepare 0th, 3 0th spells. I'll take Ray of Frost, which basically does 1 to 3 cold damage. I'll take Mage Hand. No. Mending. I'll take that one. I'll take that one later when I get a little bit more. Detect magic, which allows you to scan magic items. And read magic. So those are my 3 0th level spells, and then cast them whenever I want, and I do not lose them. Here's my 1st level spells. I'll take Magic Missile. Oops. I'll take I'll take True Strike. I'll take True Strike twice and 1 Magic Missile. So basically I cast True Strike twice in the day and cast Magic Missile once. So I think that's pretty much all for spells for this episode. I don't think there's any extra rules. Basically, the rest of the stuff is just specifically about what specific spell you're using. So the next episode is going to be about the prestige classes. So I'll see you next time. So basically, we're going to go over prestige classes on the next level, which is basically an upgrade. If you basically it's like being a special training next, which is going to be very interesting. Well, basically it's a way to add a lot of flavor and a lot of specialization, and to make these 2 classes actually work well with each other. So I'll see you next time. Bye.